play outfield positions, perhaps even in midfield, and he'd probably be the best player in your local five-a-side team. What rocks me is that no skill ever looks the same. He always seems to conjure up a new way of beating the press whenever he wants to. One of his most underrated skills is literally just faking a pass and using the instep just to check back onto his other foot. Now, a lot of keepers don't dare using this skill because it means you're now committing to clearing it with your weaker foot. Now, because Onana has a strong weak foot, he can do this all day long with no real fear of playing it off either side, and that makes this skill simple but incredibly effective. In short, fast feet, range of skills, and the swagger to even pull it off on the big stage. Statistically, Onana is not a standout goalkeeper in dealing with long shot situations, and the eye test seems to support this notion. He doesn't seem to possess huge confidence when dealing with long range situations. Now, he's got excellent handling from shots that are within his immediate vicinity from medium pace shots. If they're hit with express pace, he kind of lets them hit his body or pushes them away. Shots which are hit top bins, he struggles to get to, and if he does get to them, his fingertips are not strong enough to claw these out or pip them over the bar. He almost looks smaller than his height in these type of situations. Now, when the shot is slow enough for him to get across, he can leap with his entire body to push shots around the corner, but ultimately, in terms of long distance shot stopping, he's not top end in my opinion. He doesn't fall into that shot stopper type of description as a goalkeeper. In terms of shots from close distance inside the box, Onana's reflexes at the near post are particularly impressive. Very composed in dealing with these shots at the near post. Totally confident that the odds are in his favour, which they kind of are because he's got a stocky presence, who's not fearful of using his body as a shield, so even if his hands aren't quick enough to make a save. And also his legs are quite quick at making these little movements to deal with shots aimed at his feet from close range. In terms of his reflexes when he's situated in the middle of a goal, he isn't as strong. At times he shows flimsy wrists, falls in on his goal, and he's not tipping these reflex type of shots over the bar. When the fast-paced shots are more headed towards his feet, he reacts quicker and he is able to react with more strength and provide an effective barrier. In terms of deflected shots, he can get stuck in the ground and not react quickly enough. Overall though, I wouldn't put Onana's reflexes in the top bracket, but it's solid enough and certainly of Champions League standard. Now, we touched upon it briefly when discussing Onana's footwork, but if United were looking for the jump start to their build-up play after the departure of De Gea, they've got it with the arrival of Onana. His stats beat the Spaniards into submission, more touches of the ball, more forward passes, high pass accuracy, and it isn't just De Gea who struggles in this comparison. Quite simply, Onana is one of the world's leading ball-playing keepers. Now, based on the eye test, it becomes apparent that perhaps Onana isn't as flawless as we thought in that regard. He can produce the odd comical error and wildly lose the ball with poor pieces of execution. But in general, we see a goalkeeper who can break lines with his passing and even with his weak foot, change up the direction of the attack to the opposite fullback. Now, his issues come when he's either being too cocky, taking too long to release a pass, or fails to spot the situation ahead of him has changed, or when he randomly just panics and wants to pass it out too quickly. But when he's in that mental, happy medium zone of being alert yet confident, he can really destroy the effectiveness of the opposition press and almost act as a deep-lying playmaker of sorts. Onana's long passing is difficult to dissect. On one hand, he kicks further with his weak foot than most of his rivals, and yet with his stronger foot, he's not kicking it further than even a De Gea. In terms of aesthetics, he isn't the most pleasing ball striker. He looks quite rough around the edges compared to a Diogo Costa or an Edison. They look much more classier when they're going through the motions of kicking a ball. So this leads to more breakdowns in technique and wild hits out of play. But when he does get it right, because of his natural football attacking brain, he can curl passes into the channels in behind fullbacks or find the head of a target man forward to flick onto runners. Out of hand, his kicking technique looks more natural, it looks better, but I wouldn't put it on the same level as David Raya, who we covered in our last video, but it can hurt teams, and I think it's an underrated weapon that United should seek to exploit.
Nezgodná pomalá lopta za Andrea Onanu, ale uspie to izvučiť.
In terms of his throwing, Onana is a skilled thrower of the ball. He's quickly able to assess the situation and spot the right type of throw for the situation. He's pretty proactive. He can use two-handed basketball throws, throw close to 35 to 40 yards to spring a counter-attack down the flank, or roll a ball through traffic to find a midfielder on the half turn.
Dat was redelijk opvallend geweest. Onana.
In terms of sweeping, Onana's stats from his inter-season have to be taken with a pinch of salt, as he's barely had to sweep away from his goal line due to Inter's deep set backline. Now compare his numbers to a younger self at Ajax and it's a world of difference. Always worth noting that the impact tactical systems can have on a player's stats. Anyway, what we can see from the eye test is a keeper who's quick across the ground, generally quite measured when he comes into connection with the ball. He's got that composure of an outfield player and generally likes to keep it simple. Now, whilst he doesn't sweep large areas behind the defence at Inter, he's still off his line a fair bit, in and around the box, looking to sweep up through balls which are slightly overhit into the box, and he's able to therefore compensate for any lack of pace in Inter's defence, cleaning up any failures to produce recovery runs. And he's very alert at doing this, and this could prove important if the likes of Lindelof and Varane are playing. Onana's a mixed bag dealing with one-on-ones. When he comes out, there isn't the same level of presence as a Neuer or an Alisson. There's an impending sense of doom when an attacker looks up and sees those big walls closing in on them. But Onana has a more flimsier vibe, and whilst at times he can quickly cover ground and put in a well-timed thrust for the ball, and he rarely gives away penalties due to a calm presence of mind, it can at times veer into passiveness and overcautiousness, which leads to him being too static. And by being static, that leads to him not closing down with the sufficient intensity and opens up angles either side of him or over his head, leaves him stranded in no man's land, and sometimes he's vulnerable to being rounded by a fast attacker, and then he makes flailing attempts to rescue the situation to no avail. So I think he needs to become more decisive and aggressive. Probably the most surprising stat, and one which should concern United fans yet defies the eye test, is Onana's ability to deal with aerial battles or crosses. Statistically, it looks quite frankly like a calamity, someone who's going to get eaten alive in the Premier League against the likes of Brentford. Yet eye test wise, his handling looks soft, he's physically robust and hard to muscle off the ball in aerial duels, and he's more than happy to leave his line to punch or pluck a ball from the air. Quite frankly, I'm left scratching my head as to how this guy can be statistically worse than De Gea, and one argument could be that perhaps the Spaniard doesn't leave his line enough to be exposed via the numbers, but the numbers also suggest that Onana's not leaving his line often either. Well, anyway, if I had to make the call, I think United are getting an upgrade in this regard. I think Onana will defy the numbers in this regard, so the proof will be in the pudding when he comes to the Premier League.
Heel vaak wordt snel diepte gezocht. Hey, Abouglo.
Tactically, Onana is going to revolutionise United's build-up play. They'll instantly be harder to press, and he's going to have a Lissandro-esque upgrade on what they had before. A key cornerstone of future Ten Hag ball has been implemented with this signing. In terms of sweeping and United keeping a higher line, he'll also have a big impact on United, but I think that's also dependent on who they sign to replace Varane in the starting lineup. For now, with Lissandro in and out of the team with injury and the other three centre-backs being quite slow, I think Onana in the short term will have to resemble more of his Inter version rather than the one that United fans want to see, and see this high line competing with the likes of Liverpool, City and Arsenal. In conclusion, a revolutionary signing for Manchester United, even if Onana underperforms in the pure goalkeeping sense, and I suspect that his pure shot stopping will not come close to prime De Gea. I think we will see some errors. I think the impact that he'll bring to the team in terms of ball playing to a club that's been starved in this respect for over a decade will be stunning. Is he a generational keeper? Perhaps not, but for United he'll feel like the birth of a new era, and he certainly is already operating close to a world-class level, and if United can improve as a side collectively, there's no reason why he can't potentially cement world-class status as part of a project that eventually is headed in the right direction and finally starts to play some modern possession-based football. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share and subscribe, and see you guys again next time. Bye.